You're listening to the Kelly Green Hour for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter, @ANYPodcast, or visit us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast. As always, I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and joining me today, we have a special guest, somebody who's looking to get into doing some podcasts, so I figured, why not? I'm off today. We'll bring him in. We'll let him talk Philadelphia Eagles football. Him and his family are season tickets holders to the Eagles, so I can't wait to get his perspective on how things are going. It's my friend Joey Moreira. Joey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Happy birthday, LJ.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So, Joey, we're gonna talk all things NFL, but obviously we have to start with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mentioned in the opening, you and your family go to Eagles games all the time. You have season tickets. As this season, coming into the season, we had high expectations. Everybody thought this Pro Football Focus, Doug Peterson, Zach Ertz, everybody said that this is a very talented roster, the best offensive line in football, best defensive line in football, best set of skill position players in football, with the receivers, if you include the tight ends. They're 5-7 right now. You go to multiple games a year. You go all the time. On Snapchat, everything. I see your pictures, and I'm jealous, and I hate you, by the way, for that. I'm kidding. But you're down at the link. What are you like? You and your family when you watched the game on Sunday against the Dolphins? What were your thoughts? What was going through your head? And obviously they haven't met expectations. What do you want to see? What haven't they done?
Well, first of all, obviously when it comes to Miami, you come into it. They're tanking. You know that they traded away a lot of their top players. Fitzpatrick. I believe they traded away Kenyon Drake.
They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick, Kenyon Drake, Laramie Tunsil, Kenny Stills, all gone.
So they're literally saying we're tanking. They're literally symbolizing we're tanking, but they're still trying to win games regardless.
The one thing I mentioned, because I usually do the Kelly Green Hour with Connor. He'll be back. Again, I mentioned this is a special. I wanted to get you involved, bring somebody in. Connor and I will get back to our doing our. We don't get no victory Green Hour this week, but we'll be back on later this week to get you set for the Giants Monday night game. But the one thing the Dolphins did, if they were looking to tank, they brought in the wrong quarterback. Fitzpatrick is a baller. We saw him with the Tampa Bay last year. The first 5 weeks of the season, he lit up the league, was one of the better quarterbacks, then hit a tailspin. This was a stat that you never see. The Eagles have played Fitzpatrick 7 times. He's been on 7 different teams. I've never seen that happen before. But the last 2 games against the Eagles, he's got over 700 yards. He's got 7 touchdowns. The Eagles cannot stop him, and it doesn't matter what type of weapons the opposing team has.
And if you ask me, before the season started, obviously when they traded for Josh Rosen before the season started, that was a huge trade for me, in my opinion, for the Miami Dolphins to rebuild this team, to rebuild around a young quarterback. But if you ask me that Fitzpatrick was still going to be the starting quarterback when the Eagles play, I would have told you it would be crazy. But obviously, we are not unfamiliar with that Fitzpatrick doing some Fitzmagic. Obviously, last year he made our defense look terrible
First play of the game.
Had a field day with Deshaun nonetheless, who's not playing right now. So coming into this game, I knew Fitzpatrick, regardless of what team he is, going to be an issue. But at the same time, I knew this was a game where, if the offense was going to click, which they did, and if the defense played the same level they did, which they didn't, then it would be a game they manhandled. But obviously, they started off really well. They had a really strong first play defensive play where intercepted by Ronald Darby, which I was a little scared at first they're going to put back because it looked like it was a pass interference.
On Kabuga J. Hill? Yeah.
Yeah.
If Brian Flores would have challenged that, he would have won that one.
Yeah, he probably would have. But obviously they had a strong start with that. And then obviously when it came to halftime, it was 28-14. But you knew there was still some spark, obviously, with the really weird but fake field goal they went for, which
3 straight weeks that the Philadelphia Eagles have given up a touchdown on a trick play. It started with Julian Edelman's touchdown to Philip Dorsett. Then last week against Seattle, it was the pass back to Russell Wilson, and he threw that dart to the rookie receiver. I can't remember, Turner, I think, for Seattle. And then the fake field goal. If you're that's malpractice right there. If you're the Eagles, if you're Doug Peterson, if you're Jim Schwartz, and you see that, you probably have never practiced against that alignment the entire year. You call a time out.
I would have called a timeout right there and then once they saw it in the formation. Because here's the other thing: I think the Eagles are familiar and have their fair share of things when it comes to trick plays, because they obviously had the most famous trick play of them all, the Philly special, the Super Bowl. But that was just unacceptable. That part of it was unacceptable. When you have a kicker passing into a punter for a touchdown, I sat there and I'm like, what did I just watch? And obviously the game kind of unfolded from there. Obviously, I thought at first with the onside kick and the Eagles scoring in the first drive for second half, obviously that was game. But
So we're talking about so the Eagles were up 28-14 at 10-0, and then they were down
35-14, by the way, because the
Eagles didn't even score 35 points.
Oh no, it
was 37-31 was the final. So they were up 10-0 at one point. This is where we thought it was going to be a rout. It wasn't. Then the Dolphins were able to get a 14-13 lead going into the half. The Eagles come out and they score after that onside kick, which I called. I was watching the game with my sister and her boyfriend and my nephew, and I said, watch the Dolphins do an onside kick, and they did. And of course the Eagles go down to score. And when you get up 28-14 against the team that has the 30th ranked offense in the NFL, the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL, their defense is historically bad. You can't stop moving the football. And look, I'm not going to blame that on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the last 2 weeks he didn't have great numbers, but this week he was not the problem. The number one problem for the Philadelphia Eagles was the defense. The defense got abused by Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki all game. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for over 360 yards. We're talking about Ryan freaking Fitzpatrick right now.
And I gotta say one thing about this Dolphins team. I gotta give them credit when credit is due. Is that there's two people who I want to stand out to when it comes to this team. Ryan Fitzpatrick, despite his age, despite his journeyman, and despite how weird and inconsistent sometimes he could be, this Dolphins team is playing for him. They feel it. They like to play for this guy, and that you see the difference between him and Josh Rosen for weeks and weeks. And then you have to look at Brian Flores at a situation. Nobody would even win a single game when you trade away all your superstars, pretty much. And you have Parker and Ballage, who got hurt, by the way, and you have a undrafted free agent taking over the running back who destroyed them.
Not really. So the Dolphins didn't really run the football against them. It was the passing game. Yeah. It was Gesicki and it was Parker. And Parker was a guy that the Dolphins were looking to trade who the Eagles had interest in. If the Eagles would have had him, that would not have happened. So Carson Wentz, we'll go back to the Eagles offense. Carson Wentz actually looked good because he had Alshon back. He had Nelson back, who Nelson, we all have our ups and downs with him, but he is a starting caliber receiver. He's better than Mac Hollins. You had your two tight ends. You had Miles Sanders, who, by the way, why did Carson Wentz throw the ball 22 times, I think it was, in the first half. And then in the second half, they ran the ball 7 times. You're talking about a Miami defense that gives up 150-plus yards on the ground, and the Eagles did nothing with that. They didn't give the ball to Miles Sanders, who was moving the football on the ground.
That's a struggle with this team. When you sit here and you symbolize this team is not the same team as it is in 2017.
No,
but when you symbolize this team this year, they're a run attack 2 clock team. And obviously, unfortunately, we didn't have Jordan Howard that game to complement that. But you still have a pretty good Miles Sanders who's been really been hitting his stride over the past few weeks. And obviously with the Jay Ajayi pickup, obviously he's not the same as Jay Ajayi, but still he could be effective when it comes to the running game. And when you have your quarterback throwing for 46 times and only run the ball to 19 times, that's a balance. And not only that, but if those passes were to be incomplete, you're giving a lot of time to the other team.
Yeah, and the Eagles' 2 best wins this year were against Green Bay and against Buffalo. Now, obviously, the Buffalo, that the circumstances there with the weather and the wind, that's why they preferred they ran the ball a lot. But in that Green Bay game, they kept the ball away from Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers had over 400 yards passing. But they were able to run the ball right down Green Bay's throat. And this is where we thought that this is going to be a ground and pound team. And this is what they have to do. They're fine, they're not going up against a great running team, a team that gives up over 150 yards on the ground. Why would you get away from that? It makes zero sense that Doug Peterson cannot. He really is a clone of Andy Reid. Like, you notice that you are running the ball and you have a 2-touchdown lead. The last 3 weeks, we're talking about games that were pretty much within one possession for the most part, and they get away from the run way too easy. Yes, I know you have a good quarterback in Carson Wentz who you want to put the game on his shoulders. I get it. I understand it. But run the football. Take time off the clock that doesn't allow the other team to be able to come back quickly. When you have weapons, our corners are bad. Connor and I, who on Saturday when we did our preview game going into this game, we were talking about what were the Eagles' needs coming into the draft, which we'll discuss later on. But we both were saying wide receiver, but a lot of the national pundits, a lot of the guys that were doing mock drafts are saying the Eagles need a cornerback. We saw Sunday why.
And you have to go back to week 8 when the trade deadline was coming up, and
he did nothing,
and there was no moves at all, which I was shocked. If it were even a corner or wide receiver, if it was something, I would have been happy with that because at least we're trying to make moves to improve the team. But there was no moves at all, and you can blame a lot of that on the Sanu trade due to the fact that now
they gave up a second round pick.
Because the whole what teams want to give up is now inflated, and you have to blame that. But at the same time, the Eagles were willing to also trade 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey.
Which, I'm glad you brought his name up. I bet you Jalen Ramsey wouldn't have got mossed 4 times like the Eagles corners did yesterday. Just saying. Devontae Parker would not have had over 150 or whatever he had and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Parker would have been locked down if we had Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, I'm going to say. Devontae Parker looked like a Julio Jones and a top 5 receiver out there with our corners. And the worst part about it was we were lining up with the same corner in Jalen Mills. And I like Jalen this year. Jalen has been playing pretty well this year, especially against the Patriots game where he stood out really well. But you can't just be consistent all around and then give up 159 yards, 7 receptions to Devontae Parker, who it
doesn't make sense to me.
It baffled me.
Against Tom Brady and Russell Wilson, the Eagles defense gave up 17 and 17. They didn't do any. And in the last 4 games, so the 2 games prior to that, they didn't give up more than 17 points against the team that averages 14 points a game, who has one of the worst offenses in the NFL. You give up 37 points. And everybody that wants to try to blame Carson Wentz needs to stop it. This loss was on the defense and on Doug Peterson.
And I want to bring you an interesting stat line in terms of it's not really numbers, but it's more something interesting I found when it comes to the schedule and what we have been going through. When the Eagles defense gives up 20 or more points, Carson Wentz is actually at its best. Carson Wentz is actually thrown for 2 or more touchdowns. He's actually completing a lot more. He's actually playing really well. But when the Eagles defense give up like 20 or under points, the offense is absolutely just non-existent.
Really? That's a weird stat.
Yeah, it's a weird stat because you look. Let me go back to the first thing. One of the games, for example, the Jets game, for example. The defense played lights out that game, but Carson Wentz and the offense didn't really do much. It was a lot on the defense, really, on giving that. And then you reflect to the Bills game, for example. Again, another heavily defensive game where it focused on the run game and not the pass game. So you can't win basically with these kind of alignments. You either get a really good defense and a mediocre offense, or the other way around. And it's frustrating because you want them to both click, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, and the Eagles have yet to put a full 60-minute game together, where the offense and the defense both click at the same time. They have yet to do that. We thought that this was supposed to be a game where you build that confidence for the offense. The defense continues to play the way they played. Then you go into another game against a 2-win team in the Giants. The offense can get some rhythm. The defense continues to play good, except they're going to play against Saquon Barkley, who's really good. And then you go into the Redskins game, another game where it's going to be a 2 or 3 win. They're a 3-win team now, but you get to build confidence for the offense. You get to build confidence for the defense going into the Dallas game week 16, which is what's going to win the division. The winner of week 16 will win the division. The Eagles were supposed to take these cupcakes. They were supposed to be cupcakes. We're at a point in time now where the Eagles shouldn't be favored against anybody. This game against the Giants, they're 8.5-point favorites. Why? Why should we think that the Eagles are going to win that game? Why do we have any faith? I have zero faith right now that they're going to beat the Giants. You're probably going to be there. Are you going to be there?
No, I'm actually not. Okay. I have work that day, unfortunately.
Well, so, like, whoever's at that game, how do you even, do you cheer the team? What do? Do you sit on your hands? Do you hope something good? Like, I don't even know what type of reaction the team's going to get on Monday night next week. I
don't know if Las Vegas even has TVs, because I think the fact is, you're just looking at the team of like, all right, it's the Eagles, so we're just going to bet. We're going to bet with them because against the Giants or Redskins. But really, if you lose against the Dolphins, I don't think you should be favorites for the rest of the season. That's the kind of thing.
If you lose against the Dolphins, you have no right to make the playoffs. So the Eagles are lucky that they play in the NFC East right now. It's not the NFC East; it's the NFC least. You see all the memes going around of the trash cans because that's what every team is. Did you see? There's another meme out there with has a guy that's an Eagle, a guy that's a Cowboy, and they're falling all over the place trying to get their balance. That's what this division is right now. The Cowboys gave you a gift on Thanksgiving, losing to the Bills. You were supposed to have this cupcake against the Dolphins. You win. You're tied in first place. The Dallas goes against the Bears, a game they could possibly lose to. They might not, but they could possibly lose against the Bears. You beat the Giants. You're in sole possession of first place. But no, we need help to get to the playoffs. This team isn't deserving of a playoff spot, but we're here begging other teams to help us.
Here's the bright side, though, with these next two opponents. You have the Giants and the Redskins. Both of them have rookie quarterbacks. Obviously, we didn't face the Redskins' rookie quarterback because he was still on the bench at the time. They were going to start Colt McCoy. In that game, we got Case Keenum, who's obviously not starting anymore. And obviously now this is a different team because they fired their head coach. But this is a team you should easily walk through, especially, I don't care you're away. I don't care if you're struggling. You're versing against Dwayne Haskins, who there are reports out there where he is not putting out correct play calling.
That doesn't surprise me. I wasn't high on him coming out the draft anyway.
But then you also have Daniel Jones, who has been up and down. But again, it's the Giants. The thing
with the Giants, though, is their offensive line's really not that great. But you have Saquon Barkley, who can make a lot out of nothing. And we saw how last year, the Giants were terrible last year, and both games were relatively closer than they should have been. And that was with Eli Manning at quarterback.
But the Eagles are one of the best when it comes to stopping the run. So if anyone can stop Saquon and neutralize him, I hope it's the Eagles. But at the same time, I'm not going to put money into it if it means.
I still don't understand how the Eagles are 8.5-point favorites. The opening line for next week. I'm sure that's going to come down possibly to 5. Where a lot of people may be betting on the Giants. It's tough. It's another. I can't believe this is a Monday night primetime game. Granted, Monday Night Football isn't what it used to be. The big game is Sunday night now. But you're thinking NFC East battle. What? Who the heck knows what's going to happen? I have never had a time where I thought or I lost a lot of faith in the Eagles. Like I always look, they have a shot. I am at that tipping point right now. And I don't know how to feel.
It's sad when you look at it, and even the Redskins have a chance of winning the division now.
If Dallas loses out and the Eagles the Eagles go 1-3, but their win is against Dallas, and the Redskins win out. The Redskins win the NFC East,
which is unbelievably impossible. But at the same time, if that happens, I don't know if I can watch next season, because you look at this team. This is the same team who was going through controversy after controversy with their coaches finding who supposedly smoked weed.
Jay Gruden getting fined. Yes.
Yeah. And then you had the Trent Williams.
Trent Williams holding out and then coming back, and then his injury that the Redskins didn't
report. It was a cancerous tumor, apparently.
Something like that, yep.
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Actually, I have a game for you. Do you want to play a little game right now?
Sure, why not? Go ahead.
So this is what I like to call keep, trade, cut.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 3 players, and I want you to
cut? Okay.
Yep, and why. And the last one's just a little bit funny because why not? We need some laughter here.
Yeah, especially after what we've gone through the last.
Exactly, we need some positivity.
Keep, trade, cut. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so here are the first 3 players. obviously the wide receiver position had been going through a lot of controversy, of course, with Deshaun not getting surgery at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he should have, obviously, hindsight being 2020.
Nelson Aguilar just becoming 2016 Nelson Aguilar in 2015, which is, I don't know how you can go backwards after going forward.
And after them giving him $9 million.
And then Alshon being inconsistent, and now coming out of stories of
him being the leaker to Josina Anderson.
Exactly.
So those three?
So, all right, who do you want to keep out of those three? Deshaun, Alshon, or Nelson Aguilar?
I keep Deshaun.
You keep Deshaun?
Yes.
Who do you want to trade?
I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're getting rid of the last two.
Yeah, but which one would you think had the highest value in terms of their thing right now?
I mean, if you want to do highest value, like Deshaun of the three would have the highest value.
You're not getting a second round pick from these guys. You're
not. The thing is, all right, so I'm keeping Deshaun because I think Deshaun is going to come back healthy. We saw when he was healthy what him and Carson were able to do together. So Deshaun is staying on the team.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue is Howie Roseman guaranteed Alshon's contract for next year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's $16 million for next year, I think. 60, something like that. And with Nelson, he's a free agent. So, I mean, like, regardless of what you do with the trade and the cut portion, those two are... Nelson's gone because they're not re-signing Nelson. They're going into the draft and they have to draft at least 2 speed receivers. Like, if the Eagles can get a top 15 pick and try to get back into the top 10, you draft CeeDee Lamb. If you can't, I would get Henry Ruggs from Alabama.
This makes you glad a little more that you didn't trade for Jalen Ramsey because...
No, well, yes and no. So, I have been a huge proponent of getting Jalen Ramsey because Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in the league and he's only 24. The Eagles' weak point at the beginning of the year was cornerback because of all the injuries. We saw in the Dolphins game that corner is still a weak spot. I'll mention this again. If you have Jalen Ramsey on the field, Devontae Parker doesn't have 150-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Amari Cooper, you wouldn't have to worry about Amari Cooper anymore. He would shut Amari Cooper down. Now, has Jalen Ramsey solved all the problems in Los Angeles? No, he does not because he doesn't play offense. I also think that Jared Goff is way overrated. He's worse than Carson Wentz. And I also think that Sean McVay is an overrated coach. I think Doug Peterson is better.
I was going to say Jared Goff is probably the the biggest problem when it comes to the team. I like Sean McVay, but I do not like Jared Goff at the quarterback.
Jared Goff, you saw in the Super Bowl last year what Bill Belichick did against him. Jared Goff, you know how in the helmets, the microphone or whatever in the helmets for the quarterback stays on until the 15-second mark of the play clock. Mm-hmm. Well, McVay is talking to Goff the entire time, telling him what he's going to do with the play. So what did Bill Belichick do in the Super Bowl? When it hit 15 seconds, they changed the defense up. That's why the Rams couldn't do anything offensively. It's because Jared Goff can't read defenses.
No.
So that's what happened to him, and he's regressing. He's not that good of a quarterback. And ever since he got his contract, which is bigger than Carson Wentz's contract, he's gone downhill, and they're going to regret that. Then you have to talk about Todd Gurley's contract because his knees are an explosion waiting to happen. And I mean, he gets hit wrong, he's done. We saw what happened in Georgia. He had a really serious knee injury. It's shocking he was able to get back the way he was. Aaron Donald getting his contract, that's a given. You need to do that. But now they have to pay Jalen Ramsey. You paid Brandon Cooks, who always seems to get hurt. So who knows? They're going to have to break that up. I mean, for the fact that they traded all those picks, they don't have another first round. The Rams don't have another first round pick till I think 2022. So they have to keep Ramsey. But if I'm the Eagles, if I'm Howie Roseman, I would have made that move because you're not in a position right now. You would be in first place in this division right now if you had Jalen Ramsey.
And going back to the draft right now, from what I'm reading from different reports and what people are leaking, that apparently this is one of the best draft wide receiving class in a while.
It is.
Of course, you have guys. I think CeeDee Lamb is.
CeeDee Lamb's. Oh no, Jerry Jeudy from Alabama is the number 1 receiver. I think CeeDee Lamb is number 2. He's right there. Then there's Henry Ruggs, who's another Alabama receiver who you can get later in the first round. Devontae Smith is another Alabama receiver who, like, if you watch, I love college football. I'm an Alabama fan. Yes, I know they lost to Auburn. They're not in the college football playoff. Get it. Okay, get it out the system. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I mean, at least your guys are top 25 as opposed to Temple.
Yeah, you're a Temple guy. But when you watch these Alabama receivers, when you watch CeeDee Lamb, the one thing you notice is speed A, they catch the ball, and B, they open up separation. That's what the Eagles need. I've said this, Howie Roseman made the big mistake by building this offense around a speed guy and only having one of them. Everybody knew Deshaun Jackson was not going to play 16 games. With Deshaun Jackson not playing 16 games, you needed to have a backup plan. They did not have a backup plan, and that's where Howie Roseman cost the team.
And this is unfortunately a wake-up call for the Eagles because their philosophy of picking up veterans from the free agency who have experience, excluding playoff experience, and bringing them this and filling them for a year and then letting them leave. People like LeGarrette Blount, Torrey Smith.
That worked, though. That was the Super Bowl year.
That was
this is where I'm glad you brought that up because the Super Bowl year, every move that Howie made worked. You got Patrick Robinson. You found out he wasn't a starting outside corner. You put him in the slot. He was one of the better slot corners. You brought in Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith may not have been able to catch the ball, but he was able to stretch the field and he
made key plays in the playoffs, including that ridiculous catch at the Atlanta.
LeGarrette Blount. He's not the fastest, but he is physical. And after that Kansas City Chiefs game in 2017, he's like, look, yeah, we need to run the ball, but he didn't open up his mouth. The next week against the Chargers, they ran the football down the Chargers' throat with LeGarrette Blount.
And a lot of this, you have to look at the development of the players and the loss of Frank Reich and how badly that hurt the team. Because I really hope I hope the staff knows that Mike Groh's not going to be in there next year. I hope
he better not. His dad fired him. I don't know why anybody else would hire him. If your dad fires you, there's a reason why.
But I really think he needs to be like on him and Carson Wentz. Not Wentz. Wentz, the wide receiving coach. Because you're sitting there and guys like Matt Collins is sitting there on the lineup and putting his hands up saying what the play calling is in 3 years in the league. That's a concern.
We are talking about a receiver in Matt Collins who at the beginning of the year they asked him, would you rather play special teams or receiver? And he said special teams. As soon as that happened, I cut him. Why are you on the team? You're a wide receiver. Yes, I get it. Special teams is important, but your number one priority should be playing wide receiver, and he has not done that. He went a full month. I think it was October. It was October or November. But he went a full month without catching a football. And he played like 80% of the snaps. That should not happen. That is terrible.
I was the one who played into the whole Matt Collins hype back in 2017 when he caught that deep ball. And I was like, oh, he's going to be the next Deshaun. And next thing you know, I'm just sitting there like, oh boy. JJ's starting to hit some. JJ's starting to get better. I mean, he's not progressing the way we want to, like a DK Metcalf, but he made a really nice catch and a really nice adjustment at the Miami game, and it makes me
now my thing. So the one thing I think that Doug Peterson is doing a disservice with this offense is Carson Wentz is not a pocket passer. No. Carson Wentz is better outside the pocket. And we saw against Miami, they started moving the pocket. He was getting outside. When he's outside the numbers, when he's outside the pocket, and he can square his shoulders and throw the ball down the field, he is better than most quarterbacks at doing that. Why the Eagles don't devise a game plan for that to happen bothers me. They need to do that. We saw it against Miami. That's why the offense was able to start putting up some points.
And some of that you can blame on just maybe Carson himself, because when you have a guy who's been injured for the past 3 seasons, his first year, he broke his rib in preseason. He didn't miss any time during the regular season. And then the second season, he tore his ACL at the Rams game, unfortunately. And then, Nick Foles and the rest is history. And then you have the back injury at year 3. You have a guy who's trying to stay healthy. And obviously, his offseason progression with taking some health, some new healthy and diet changes, and he looks a lot better. And I feel like he's a lot more. He looks a lot more healthy, and it makes me glad he is. But at the same time, I want him to move out of the pocket because that's what he's known for. He is so much more dangerous when he's moving outside the pocket. And I don't know if some of it has to do with the coaching, just making sure you have to just stay in the pocket. But at the same time, I want him to move outside the pocket when he needs to, because he is just unbelievably one of a kind when he's outside the pocket.
So the one thing that I think that, again, where the Eagles coaches did a disservice to Carson, they drilled in his head, don't take unnecessary hits. You should be throwing from the pocket. again, he is not a pocket passer. So they did a disservice to him. They're drilling this in his head, and that's what he's trying to do. But he is better, when he can move around and allow his receivers to find a way to get open. So before I'm trying to remember so before we move on to other games in the league or around to other teams around the league and whatnot, Mike Rowe, you think is gone?
Yeah, he's gone.
Carson Walsh gone.
Gone.
Jim Schwartz.
No, I don't think.
You think he's back?
I think Jim Schwartz has done. We haven't given Jim Schwartz enough credit because when he's lost a lot of his guys and people like LeBlanc, Avonte Maddox, and all those other guys, he had a cut. They had a cut their linebacker they got for free agency,
Zach Brown.
When you give him that and the defense started to do a lot better against one of the best offensive teams in the league. Now, no, the Patriots haven't been great offensively, but the Seahawks have been really effective. And when you have a game where they only put up 17 points, some of it has to do with luck because of just open throws and all that. But a lot of it has to do with the fact is that Schwartz is doing better.
All right.
So I say he's there. I think give him another year. I think.
So we all know. Okay, so we won the Super Bowl. We know that gave Doug and Howie a little bit. When the Eagles were making that Super Bowl run and you were waiting for the Super Bowl, did you make a deal with the devil saying, "Look, let us win this one and I'll be fine. I'll be fine with whatever happens the next, say, 5 years." Did you make that deal?
No. Because when you
growing up, I had never seen we've never seen a Super Bowl championship. I was one of the people that said, "Let us win the Super Bowl right now. We can have a couple of down seasons." I regret saying that because I don't like it.
No, because here's the thing. You want to be the dynasty. You want to be a very one. You want to be the Steel Curtain. You want to be the Cowboys dynasty back in 1990s. And you want to be the next Patriots dynasty. You want to be that team that was the greatest team of all time.
That was going to be us.
And you thought, everyone thought that. And unfortunately, it's not the case. And some of it has to do with injury. Some of it has to do with just coaching. But just a lot of it just has to do with getting caught up in your own success. The Eagles were really hungry team. Even with a lot of the big key players losing, they still played really well that year. And unfortunately, after that, they just weren't the same fire team. Even when they made the playoffs last year.
Let's talk about the team real quick. There are going to be a lot of change, and I'm not talking coaching staff. I'm talking players. Carson Wentz is going to be back. Is Alshon back? Is Deshaun back? We know Nelson's not back. Jason Peters is probably not back. On defense, Mills is he going to be back? Darby most likely not going to be back. McLeod and Jenkins, will they be back? We know Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, and Fletcher Cox are going to be here. Is Jernigan going to be back? Probably not. They need to revamp the linebacker position. Nigel Bradham is good. He missed a lot of games and that hurt. But behind Bradham, they don't have much. I like T.J. Edwards. I don't know if he's there yet. Kamuga Hill, I don't like as a linebacker. I like him as a special team guy. Nate Gary, he can get the hell off the face of this planet because I can't stand him. He is terrible. They have to fix the secondary at corner. They need to fix the linebackers. They need to fix the receivers. If there's one point that everybody's made is the reason why they're glad the Eagles didn't make the move for Jalen Ramsey, it's that. They have so many holes on this team. You need as many picks as you can get. They're going to have 10 to 11 picks going into this upcoming draft. They need to hit on 90% of them because Carson Wentz's contract goes into play next year. They got to find a way to get him healthy or keep him healthy, but they're going to have to find a way to build a team around his $32 million a year salary.
And this is where all eyes are going to be on Howie Roseman this offseason. We always praise Howie for his amazing 2017 work with getting free agents, getting really good guys to the draft and stuff. Howie hasn't really had a good draft. He's had one, maybe two picks. People like Derek Barnett, who
I'm still iffy on Barnett.
I still like Derek Barnett. But you have people who we thought were going to be great people, like Sidney Jones, who's an absolute bust.
I'm mad. He's probably gone next year too, which sucked because I was high on Sidney Jones.
But all eyes are going to be on Howie Roseman. How is he going to respond to a lot of guys who are contracts are up? up. Obviously, who he's going to keep and who he's going to resign. Obviously, how aggressive he's going to be in the free agency. And obviously, how well he does with this draft. So, this is basically all. Nobody's going to talk about Carson Wentz. Nobody's going to talk about Doug Peterson. Everyone's going to talk about Howie Roseman this offseason. And if this is not a good team next year, the next blame is on Howie Roseman. Like, that's where it comes down to.
Howie, and I think now we're at a point where Howie and Doug are on the hot seat for next year. If this team doesn't improve, you're going to be 3 years out from having won the Super Bowl. If this team does not improve, if Carson does not improve, it goes on the coaches. And this is where Jeffrey Lurie put both of them on the hot seat. You have to find a way to get better. This division is winnable because every team in this division sucks. The Eagles are doing a great job. The Eagles are doing a great job at giving Jason Garrett a life in Dallas, which I guess we want. We want him to stay in the division because he's a terrible coach. But there's no reason for him to be winning the division 3 out of 4 years.
And this is the unfortunate part because, everyone's thinking like, oh, we got next year and stuff. You don't know what the Giants are going to be like next year. You don't know what the Redskins are going to be like this year. The
Giants have a quarterback, a running back. They could probably draft Jerry Jeudy. They have to build up that offensive line and build up that defense. But their offense has a chance next year to be legit with Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones. If you drafted Jerry Jeudy in the first round because they're going to have a top 5 pick, that offense could be scary. And then all you got to do is find a way to build up that defense. And Pat Shermer's probably not going to be their coach. So they're going to go out and get another coach that's going to be better than what they have now. And then that could be a scary team.
And then going back to just the whole NFL in general, everyone's thinking, oh, we can just make the wild card. But this year, has been the most competitive NFC I have ever seen in a while. You have the best team. It shocks me where the best team, the second best team in the NFC, won't even get a home field advantage at the wild card game.
Yeah, because the two best teams are in the same division. It's San Francisco and Seattle.
That just shocks me.
If the Eagles win the division, if the Eagles win the NFC East, they're going to be the 4 seed. They're going to have to face San Fran, or they're going to have to face Seattle.
No. Yeah. Well, San Fran's going to get the bye. So
I think Seattle wins the division.
Really?
I do.
That's interesting.
I think Seattle is going to win the division, so it would be San Francisco.
I'll keep that note in my head, actually.
San Francisco would come here, and that defense is legit. I'm not sold on Jimmy Garoppolo in that offense, but the defense for San Francisco is legit. So, I mean, while I feel comfortable with the game being at the Link because the Eagles tend to play better at the Link, you're still going up against one of the top 3 teams in the entire conference.
I don't care about winning a playoff game now at this rate. I just want to give Carson Wentz and a lot of these players a playoff experience so that way they're exposed and ready. Because at this rate, it's just about winning the division so you get some morale up for this team and all about giving guys experience at this rate. It's not about winning the Super Bowl anymore because if you win the Super Bowl this year, you're considered one of the biggest stories in the NFL, but if you don't, it's like no one was expecting you anyway, so it doesn't matter.
All right, so we've talked the death out of the Eagles, and unfortunately we bored you guys with that. But let's move to. I want to talk about the best game of the weekend, or what? Do you want
to talk about the Thanksgiving games first?
No, I don't really care about the Thanksgiving game. Dallas lost. That was all that mattered. But I think the best game of the weekend because we want to get into a couple things. So I want to. San Francisco, Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I would love to see that in February.
Oh no! I think
Lamar Jackson is such a. Lamar Jackson only had 105 yards passing, but he had 101 yards rushing against that defense. You don't know what they're going to do offensively. Greg Roman and the offensive coordinator for Baltimore and Lamar Jackson are match made in heaven right now because Greg Roman did it with Colin Kaepernick when they went to the Super Bowl. He knows how to devise game plans with a quarterback who has a special, unique talent that Lamar Jackson has. We saw it with Michael Vick, but Michael Vick wasn't coached until he got to Philly as a quarterback. He was coached as an athlete playing the quarterback position. So I've always said that if Michael Vick got drafted by the Eagles and Donovan McNabb got drafted by Atlanta and was under Dan Reeves and all that, Michael Vick would have been a way better quarterback as Donovan McNabb because he would have gotten the requisite coaching. Yeah.
Going back to the Ravens, they're going to be. This is probably going to be the most exciting playoff game that the Ravens are going to have since the Ray Lewis retirement.
I do think that the Ravens, because the Ravens right now are the number 1 seed in the NFC, or excuse me, in the AFC. they want that AFC Championship game, whether it's against Kansas City, whether it's against New England. They want that in Baltimore because you have to go to Foxborough. Not many teams win in Foxborough.
And you go to Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes against that loud stadium. You saw what happened. Lamar has not won against Arrowhead. Now, no, they almost were able to for the past 2 times, but that place is electric at an away game. Again, it's against Andy Reid in the playoffs, so exactly. You never know. But at the same time, this is a fun team to watch, and
very fun and very physical.
As much as I'm not a fan right now watching the Eagles because they're just not the same team. Watching the Ravens, especially that Monday night game against manhandling against the Rams, they're so much fun, and it's almost like how you're supposed to stop this team. So this is where you realize that you cannot underestimate a guy for his first year. I thought Lamar was going to be slowly progressing, but I never expected him to be an MVP caliber right off the bat.
I liked him when he was at Louisville in college, and when he got drafted with the 32nd overall pick by Baltimore, which was the Eagles pick, by the way. I'm not saying we should have drafted him. I'm not saying that. We have Carson Wentz. We had Nick Foles at the time, so I'm not saying that. But I was high on him. There were people that I was doing segments with that were calling me crazy, but I knew that if he was coached correctly, he has a chance to be a really good quarterback, and he is showing that. You're right, though. Nobody expected it to be year 2, year 3, whatever it is, but he is turning himself into a very, very good quarterback, and he's going to be tough because with the amount of talent they have in that backfield with him, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, you don't know who. When they run that read option, he is so good with hiding that football. You don't know if he's going to pull it or just let Ingram take it, and that affects defenses because you're supposed to read the linemen, you're supposed to read the guards. So if you're going to go with them, he'll just keep it go around the outside. And he's already got close to 1,000 yards rushing, and we're in week 13 going into week 14. And
sometimes you have to put on credit towards the offseason on how they were. They picked up Mark Ingram off of the free agency, and he's become a key factor to this offense and helping Lamar. The Heisman run, for example, was probably one of my favorite runs to watch, where you have RG3 in the back with Lamar Jackson and then Mark Ingram. It's just great. And
also defensively, they signed Earl Thomas, one of the better safeties.
Oh my God!
They made a trade for Marcus Peters,
and he's paying off.
He is. He has a couple touchdown pick sixes already. If we had a Marcus Peters, I bet you Devontae Parker doesn't moss our corners like that. I'm gonna keep going back to that.
You're just pointing at every single trade during the season, be like, if we got that guy, we wouldn't.
That's true, but it has to be. And I'm not talking marginal trades though. Jalen Ramsey wouldn't have been a marginal trade. Marcus Peters wouldn't have been a marginal trade. Jadeveon Clowney wouldn't have been a marginal trade. I'm not talking about going out and trading for somebody that you're just giving up a 7th round pick for. I'm talking about trading for somebody who's a legit starter in this league, somebody who can make plays and be a difference maker, and that's what the Eagles and how we missed out on.
I kind of want to move on to a different game, actually, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I like the Ravens and the 49ers game. The one game I was watching that I was keeping on mostly was the Titans and Colts game.
Division matchup?
Yeah, but there wasn't just that. This Titans team with Ryan Tannehill,
they're way better.
Who would have thought that they'd be a way better team? They are playing for Ryan Tannehill, and it's showing. They're a much better team. They beat Frank Wright, who, by the way, I still think he's a great head coach. But if you manage to beat that formula, and I think they didn't the Titans versus them earlier this year.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, the Colts are without T.Y. Hilton. They're without a lot of starters on that offense. So I'm not surprised. And look, Jacoby Brissett is good. He's good, but he's not Andrew Luck good. So, but what Frank Reich has done with the pieces that he had, he's a really good coach. And obviously, you talked about the Eagles missing him. We can blame Josh McDaniels for that, by the way, because Josh McDaniels was supposed to take that Indy job, and if Josh McDaniels took the Indy job, Frank Reich would have at least been here last year. Now, I'm not saying he would have been here this year. He could have possibly gotten a coaching job this year. But he would have been able to at least work with Carson Wentz for another year. And maybe we see a different Carson Wentz this year.
Yeah. And this makes me really excited for the Week 15 matchup between the Colts and the Texans. That's a divisional game right there. That's the division right there.
The The Texans beating the Patriots finally.
Oh my God! Like this,
I like Deshaun Watson a lot, and I love DeAndre Hopkins. I would wish Carson could have a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
that team. The only thing that bothers me about the Texans is I don't like Bill O'Brien.
No.
I don't think he's a good coach at all.
Can I give you my scenario on what the Texans should do? This is just a fantasy thing because obviously I don't think that's going to happen. But obviously they're going to fire probably Bill O'Brien. They're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire him.
They're going to win the division. They're not going to fire him.
They got to fire him, though.
They're not going to. But
in my opinion, if Dabo Swinney were to want to pursue the NFL, the Texans would be an absolute perfect fit for him. Because he's back with his original quarterback that he led to 2 championships with.
Dabo's not leaving. If Dabo were to ever leave Clemson, which he's not going to, his only other spot would be going to Alabama. He's not going to go to the NFL. But an NFL guy, Matt Rule. Matt Rule, who used to be Temple's coach, is doing an outstanding job at Baylor. He's turned that Baylor program around in 2 years. They are going to the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma. They're 11-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
A guy to watch out for going from the college games that I think could succeed right away. Matt Rule. Lincoln Riley's also being talked about as going to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know how good he's going to be, but I think Matt Rule will be an outstanding coach. That's a name to watch for. If an NFL owner is willing to open up his checkbook, kind of give a blank check, because that's what it's going to take to get him to leave Baylor. Matt Rule.
I wouldn't be surprised, actually, because it's funny because the Colts...
Matt Rule did an outstanding job with Temple, too, and I'm not a Temple fan at all.
He built that team to a top 25 college football team.
And they hosted game day when they faced...
Twice! They had not twice, once, but they had 2 big games. They had Penn State, they had Notre Dame. That team was so much fun to watch. But going back to it, Matt Rule was actually interviewed to be one of the replacements for the Colts head coaching job when Chuck got fired. He denied it, though, because he, of course, wanted to stay with Baylor. I wouldn't be surprised, though. That would be really fun.
Let's finish off the segment soon. Let's go to some... Everybody knows who I think is going to win certain awards. I want to get your take on who do you think the MVP is going to be in the National Football League?
Oh, Lamar Jackson.
So Lamar is going to be between Lamar and Russell?
Lamar, Russell, and...
Do you think a defensive player has a chance? Like, I can't even think of a defensive player right now. Like, Nick Bosa might have a chance.
No. I think if it's any, it's going to be between Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Christian McCaffrey. Those are the top 3 right now. Okay. Unfortunately, it's going to be Lamar.
If Lamar Jackson wins the MVP, does Russell or Christian McCaffrey win Offensive Player of the Year? Christian?
I would pick Christian because he's carrying that Carolina team on a high level, which is unbelievable. When you have a guy who nonchalantly just scores 2 to 3 touchdowns a game and carries the team with a backup quarterback, nonetheless, this team is playing off of him. And fortunately, though, they did lose to Washington, which I am shocked with. But at the same time, this guy's playing unbelievable level, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Offensive Player of the Year. But if he doesn't, then...
What about Defensive Player of the Year? Minka Fitzpatrick? He makes plays. Ever since he's gotten to Pittsburgh, he's made nothing but plays. TJ Watt, Nick Bosa.
That's a good question, because I haven't really come up with much of defensive, because I've been so frustrated with this whole Eagles team defensively that I haven't been like, I don't care about any other team because I'm going to be looking back at
Myles Garrett had a chance before he got suspended for the year.
Oh my God, that was crazy. So now I have a question for you. I want you to give me the 6 teams for both the AFC and the NFC for who's going to make the playoffs.
All right.
Of course, give me the divisional wins for each sector and who's get the 2 wildcard spots and who's going to going forward, championship game, Super Bowl, etc.
All right. So in the AFC, the Patriots are going to win. The Patriots will be the 2 seed. The Ravens will be the 1 seed. The Chiefs will be the 3 seed, and the Texans will be the 4 seed. Then my wild card teams are going to be the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's in the NFC, or that's the AFC, excuse me. In the NFC, yeah, right. I'm gonna go Saints with the 1 seed.
Really?
Seahawks with the 2 seed. Packers with the 3 seed.
Sorry.
Eagles with the 4 seed. Yeah, I don't know. Eagles will get the 4 seed.
How is it?
San Francisco is going to get the 5 seed. And the Vikings are going to get the 6 seed.
Oh my god. An 80-30 team gets a 6 seed versus a 5-7 team gets a 4 seed.
What do you think? The Niners are 10-2 right now. They're going to have to travel to Philly, who's going to be 8-8, 9-7 at best.
That's right, because if they don't get the top 2 spot, then they'll have to
go on the road.
Oh my god.
So my Super Bowl matchup, I want it to be Baltimore against Seattle.
Baltimore, Seattle for the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Oh, that should be fun.
Baltimore, Seattle Super Bowl.
A little rematch from
Couple weeks
ago, yeah. So obviously, I have Ravens at the number one seed. This might shock you, but I'm actually gonna have the Bills at this 2 seed.
You have the Bills winning the division. Don't the Patriots have a 2-game lead over them right now with 4 to play?
1 game lead, actually. Because of the loss yesterday, the win for the Bills at the Cowboys game.
They're 9-3 and 7-2.
They still got to play one more game, though.
Is that game in Foxborough, though? Or is that in Baltimore? Because if it's in Foxborough, I don't think
sorry. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's in Foxborough.
I don't know if the Bills, as good as the Bills' defense is, I don't know if they're going to win in Foxborough.
Oh, wait, never mind. I'm going to change that. I'm going to get into the Patriots because looking at the Bills' schedule, they have a home game against Baltimore.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
They have to go to Pittsburgh.
That'll be tough.
And then they have to go to New England.
Yeah.
So they can lose 3 games in a row.
I still think they make the playoffs, but
no, yeah,
they're not going to lose all 3. They're going to beat Pittsburgh probably.
I think they'll beat Pittsburgh, but
they'll go like 1 and 2 in that.
So number 1's going to go to Ravens. Number 2 is going to go to the Patriots. Number 3, that's tough. I gotta go with the Texans. Okay. The Texans are playing at a much better level.
Are the Texans and Chiefs play soon? Or did they play already? I think the Texans and Chiefs play soon. If they haven't played already, I don't remember.
I don't think they played this year at all. I don't think they're playing this year at all. I don't remember. But I think the Texans are playing at a much better level. I think they'll win out their games. I think they'll beat the Titans when they play in Week 15 just because Deshaun Watson's playing at a high confident level. It's unbelievable. I'm still going to get the Chiefs the number 4 spot because they're still going to win the division. Obviously, because come on. You have the Chiefs. You have the Raiders who got absolutely obliterated against the Chiefs. The Raiders also lost to the Jets. Like I don't know what this team is. This is a team where I wanted to make the playoffs. Now I can't even put my wild card spot because of how inconsistent they are. The number 5 seed, I have the Titans at the number 5 seed. Actually, no. I have the number 5 seed. I have the Titans.
Okay.
And the number 6 seed, barely squeezing in, is the Steelers. The Steelers shocked me.
So wait, you don't have the Bills making it then? The Bills would be one of them.
Oh, whoops. Oh.
So the Bills would be 5. And
the Bills would be 5 and Titans would be 6.
Okay.
I have to give Mike Tomlin a lot of credit
for what he's done. They're down to their 3rd string quarterback.
He lost his quarterback. He lost 2 of his key players.
He lost his running back.
He lost Antonio Brown. He lost Le'Veon Bell, which obviously isn't a problem.
They lost James Conner.
They lost Juju Smith. They had to bench Mason Rudolph, and they have Duck, who is their quarterback? Hodges. So,
all right. So, who's your NFC playoff teams?
Wow. Yeah, I have. I think I agree with you. I don't agree with you with the number 1 thing. I think I have the Seahawks at number 1. Okay. I think the Seahawks will take over number 1.
Okay.
I think the Seahawks have a formula which they could beat the 49ers. Number 2 has to go with the Saints.
Okay.
I love the 49ers. Now, don't get me wrong. The 49ers are a great team this year, and they're playing a much better defense. They have Jimmy Garoppolo's making a lot smarter choices than he is last year. He's staying healthy, of course. And, of course, their wide receivers are a lot better. But at the same time, this is way too competitive of an NFC division to even put them at the number 1 spot. So, because of the loss yesterday, I feel like teams are going to try to find ways to exploit them a little bit. And especially since they have to play the Seahawks again later this year, I feel like they're going to lose that number 1 spot.
Okay.
But that is if the Seahawks keep winning games, of course. The number 3 spot. Question. Do the Vikings still need to play the Packers?
That's a good question.
I feel like they do.
Let's check the schedule. Vikings schedule 2019. Because they're facing Seattle Monday night or tonight.
Yes. Yeah, actually, never mind.
They play the Lions. Yeah, they play on December 23rd. The Packers travel to the Vikings.
Travel to the Vikings.
Yes.
So, depending on the results on the Vikings and the Seahawks game.
And the Packers beat the Vikings 21-16 earlier in the year.
Yeah, but that was also because they weren't clicking. They weren't a great team back then. Now they're starting to become a real threat. And Kirk Cousins is playing much better level than he has been. So, 49. So the Seahawks will win the division, in my opinion. Taking the NFC North will be the Packers.
Okay.
Pending the outcome of tonight's game, of course. The NFC West will go to the 49ers, of course.
I thought you said it was Seattle. You put Seattle.
Seattle, my bad. Wow, I'm really screwed. The NFC East, I still have the Eagles.
Okay.
Pending, again, the next 3 weeks and what happens. NFC South goes to the Saints, of course. Taking the 2 wildcard spots will be the 49ers, of course. And again, it baffles me that a 10-2 team might not even get to host a wildcard game, which shocks me.
A team that's going to win 12 or 13 games, yeah.
And then taking the number 6 spot will be the Vikings.
Who's your Super Bowl matchup?
Who's my Super Bowl matchup? I think I'm going to agree with you. I think it's going to be a Ravens and Seahawks one, depending on how it goes. It might be a Ravens Seahawks, or it might be Ravens and 49ers, a rematch of the 2012 Hard-Bug Bowl.
Yeah,
that was a great Super Bowl, and now we get to. I'm really excited for this playoff because this is probably going to be one of the best playoffs to watch.
I want the Eagles in it though.
I know, but
if the Eagles make it, that playoff game isn't going to be exciting because we all know what's going to happen.
I'm gonna. Do we have time to ask you a few more questions, or no?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Let's start with this. Which team? So I'm gonna give. There's 2 tiers. There's the team that shocks you that they're doing well, and there's a team that shocks you that aren't doing well. So from East Division, who shocks you?
I won't do for me. I'll do one.
One overall. How about that?
Yeah.
One for each one overall. Which team overall in the NFL shocks you that they're doing so well, and which team overall shocks you that they're not doing that?
Niners, because I didn't think that. Look, I thought the Niners were going to be improved, but I didn't think they were going to be this well improved. And the team that's shocking me that they're not doing well are the Falcons. So, you can go Niners and Bills, but then for the team that's shockingly doing well, and the team that's doing bad, I still think is the Falcons, because you gave all that money to Julio, to Devontae Freeman, to Matt Ryan. They have a really good offense. At least they should have a good offense. And that defense is supposed to be quick and athletic and fast, but yet they stink. And I wouldn't be shocked if Dan Quinn gets fired. Yeah, so they're my 2.
I have to go with the team that shocks me the most that they're doing so well. I have to go with the Ravens. They shock me because I didn't think they would be taking over the NFL just in a year. I thought they'd be doing better. I still think they would be a playoff team. I still think they'll win the division. But I never thought that week 13 or 14, they're sitting at the number 1 spot in the whole NFL league. And it just shocks me. When I'm shocked that it's not doing well, again, another AFC team, the Chargers. I mean,
that's true.
This is a team.
I think I picked them to make the playoffs and even possibly win that division at the beginning of the year.
They were hitting strides with Eckler, who, by the way, I picked in my fantasy team because
he scores touchdowns all the time, though.
Oh my god! But the whole Philip Rivers regression has really put an effect, and of course, losing Derwin James earlier this year has really affected a lot on this Chargers team. Number 1, I hope they get to move their stadium soon, which I think they will, because playing that soccer field is just going to be just annoying for them.
That is, but they're not going to fill the stadium they played with the Rams. It's going to be all opposing fans again.
But also just, you came from a Chargers team that I was picking as one team who I wouldn't be shocked with to go to have an AFC Championship game last year, to now being shocked that now they're back in rebuilding efforts, because now you're possibly going to be losing Philip Rivers next year. Either he's going to retire or he's.
Don't be shocked if Tom Brady finds his way out there.
You keep saying that. I'm not. I would be more shocked if he leaves than if he retires next year, because I feel like
I don't think he retires. I think he's going to leave, and I think he's going to go out to LA.
Okay, well, you get to say what you say, but that would be much more of a story than whoever wins the Super Bowl next year. Yeah, that's my question to you.
Right, so we're going to finish it off with this. Eagles have 4 games left.
Yes.
The Giants, hosting the Giants, at the Redskins, hosting the Cowboys, at the Giants. Mm-hmm. We both think that they're going to win the division and still make the playoffs. Do they go through 4-0, 3-1, 2-2? Like, what do you think their record is, and who do they beat, and who do they lose, or who do they lose to?
My hope is 4-0. Obviously. I still think they're going to go 4-0. You know,
how could you think that after losing to the Dolphins?
I know, but everyone's always at its lowest lows. The Cowboys were at its lowest lows when they lost to the Jets a couple of weeks ago, and they're starting to pick up stuff, but at the same time, they're not really. I just think because of the schedule compared to what the Dallas has, Dallas has
the Bears, then the Rams,
then the Eagles, and then the Redskins. I think that Cowboys can lose at least 3 of those games. They can.
Well, we have to assume they're going to lose to us. We can't assume it, but you have to think in our projection today, they lose to us. That's 1, and they probably lose to the Rams. I don't think they're going to beat Washington.
They're going to lose to the Rams probably. Wait,
that's a home game.
Is that a home game?
That's in Dallas. They're in Chicago.
I still think the Rams are going to win that.
You still think so? I mean, yeah. If the Rams can, get back to playing good football, but like they're so inconsistent.
Their defense is still pretty good. That's the thing. Because
they got Jalen Ramsey can be covering Amari Cooper.
All it takes is a good defense to beat the Dallas.
All it takes is a winning record, because Dallas has 0 wins. You know the NFC. Here's a stat I heard: the NFC East is 2-13 against teams with winning records, and the Eagles have both those wins.
Exactly. Yeah, they beat the Bills and the Packers, which shocks me because it's like, oh, you think the Eagles are good, but they're also in the second place in the NFC East
with a 5-7 record.
Their worst games are actually versus teams with a winning record and a team that actually is also tanking.
They have losses to the Lions, who are like 3-8-1. They have losses. They have a loss to the Falcons, who are 3-9, I think. And they have lost to the freaking Dolphins, who are 3-9. But yet they have wins over the Packers, who are 9-3, and the Bills, who are 9-3. This season makes 0 sense.
And this is where the early losses and the mental mistakes early this season really hurts the team long term. Because if you win at least one of those games, whether it's the Falcons game, Nelson either caught that or JJ caught the ball against Lions, the Eagles would have been tied for the NFC East, and it wouldn't be that much of a scare. No, we'd be still screaming that we lost to the Dolphins, but we'd be like, hey, all is not lost. We could still find ways to win. But again, we'll have to see. These next 3 weeks are going to be something, and hopefully we'll have a Christmas gift and a division win, but until then, we have to just wait and see and hope the team doesn't break itself before other teams break them.
I want to see the team win a game. So please beat the Giants is all I got to say.
That's all I got to say, too.
All right. Joey, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you getting a perspective of somebody else besides myself or Connor or anybody else that does these shows with us. Again, as always, if you want to follow the Always Next Year podcast on Twitter at ANY Podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. That's LJHarrell54. For Joey, I'm LJ. Again, Joey, thank you for joining us here on the Kelly Green Hour, hosted by the Always Next Year podcast.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.